In this presentation, I want to cover some of the main elements and some background on the analytical technique known as the SWOT analysis, that is, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. The SWOT analysis comes from the business sector, the commercial sector predominantly, and the business sector would use a SWOT analysis to not only identify its own place within the market, but also potential competition as well. It was then later adopted by intelligence studies, intelligence field, and is used predominantly for target assessments and for evaluations and a few other things as well that we'll cover. So in this brief presentation, I want to talk about and cover what a SWOT analysis is. I want to talk about when is the best time to use a SWOT analysis, when is it most appropriate, and perhaps expand a little bit more on how to create a SWOT analysis. Now, this presentation is to accompany the activity that's in part 2 of the Interact site. You'll note there is additional videos there on conducting SWOT analysis as well, and a short little exercise you can try. So this presentation, as I said, is really about these 3 basics. So let's have a look. So as I said, the SWOT analysis was initially used for business planning, and in doing so, it would attempt to look at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities or threats of competitors, or sometimes as an evaluative tool of its own business, it would conduct it. Now, a SWOT, like any analytical tool, is really about being given the opportunity to reflect and structure your thinking. And so the SWOT analysis is no different than other structured analytical tools in that it helps us think. It doesn't necessarily give us the answer. It gives us the tools in order to process some ideas, process some information, and then make some analysis and some judgment from that. It's primarily used as a qualitative source. So by that means is it works best on data that is qualitative, not quantitative. So it doesn't work very well on numbers, but it works very well on primary or secondary source material, often written document type of sources, or even interviews or other, anything that's qualitative. And so the idea to conduct a SWOT analysis, and the first step I think we need to do in constructing a SWOT analysis is knowing the target or knowing the agency, whatever the subject that you're focusing this SWOT on, you need to know reasonably well. And so before you start applying the SWOT analysis, it's always best that you have a really good understanding about this. Now, when we talk about SWOTs, we need to think about, well, when's the best time to use them? And for our purposes, often they help in conducting a target assessment, and that is looking at a group or an organisation, not so much an individual. That would be more of a profile assessment, but a target assessment, as I said, could be a criminal organisation, it could be a political party, anything that, as I say, any organisation or group. And it's good, it serves a purpose also if you're reflecting upon your own agency or your own organisation, and perhaps even reflecting on an operation that might be underway. So it's both a way to develop a target assessment, but also a way to evaluate and reflect and get a sense of not only your own organisation or your own operation, but also the operations of others as well. So you can apply them. And in doing and using a SWOT, you need to have in your mind some planning about reaching a desired state. So you need to know where it is you want to be. So you need to have a sense of, well, what is it that we're wanting to know, what is it that we're wanting to do, and how do we want things to be. You need to carry those type of ideas in your mind as you go through and do the SWOT analysis, so it can enhance its focus. Now let's look a little bit here about creating a SWOT. You'll see a few things in this table. First of all, we've got strengths, we've got weaknesses, then down the bottom, opportunities, and then threats. Then we've also had them categorized as supportive elements or detrimental elements. And supportive elements are things obviously that will support the operation or the organization or the target, and they can be, so they're sort of positive things in that strengths can be a supportive measure, and opportunities obviously are a supportive measure as well. In terms of detrimental, we can see that any weaknesses are obviously going to be detrimental either to your organisation you're evaluating or to the target, and threats as well are detrimental. Now threats are a little bit differently used in a SWOT analysis to what we might normally expect in, say, a risk assessment or a threat assessment in an intelligence sense. Threats for intelligence are about potential individuals or groups that are likely to cause problem. Here, threats is much more wider area. So threats could be pretty much anything. And as it's got there, it could even be legal or economic issues can be threats. So it's a little bit different to the way that we might look at threats in the intelligence sense. But we still use them, and we still include it. Now, the other part I wanted to point out here, before we go back to more detail on each of the strengths and opportunities, weaknesses and threats, are internal and external. So often, weaknesses and strengths are sometimes seen as internal to the organisation or the target that you're looking at, again, or the evaluation that you're making, internal issues. External tend to be opportunities and threats that are outside of the organisation. And that's why on that first column there, we have the internal and external type of threats or opportunities. So that's how it's normally laid out. Now, in you putting in your strengths and so forth, as I've got here, it's about describing and knowing, okay, the attributes that are associated, in this case, a problem or the agency under investigation. So what is helping it achieve its desired state? What strengths, what's bringing it along to meeting that desired state that you had thought about earlier? The weaknesses are often seen as the agency or whatever the target is that may be preventing it from getting to the desired state. And down there on external opportunities, what may be on the horizon, what possibilities might there be to exploit, to assist in getting to that desired state. And again, threats are what might be likely to inhibit or to stop its ability to carry out an operation or meet its desired state as well. So the idea is you list each of those. So you list the strengths that are helping it get to where it wants to go, or its objectives, what weaknesses there are that may stop it from getting to its desired state, its objectives. Again, what opportunities might be existing, and what threats might be existing that might be stopping it from reaching its desired state. So you can see from my earlier point, you've got to have a good understanding of what the objective or the desired state of that agency or that target is, so you get a better understanding of where it's going. The next thing I want to show, just to conclude on, is using information on SWOTs as well. We want to be able to, once we've identified those types of strengths and how those, we need to think, well, how do those strengths translate into opportunities? So it's a question of, this is where we start to link and use the information we've identified. So we might say, okay, well, we have these particular the target is well resourced. So what opportunities does that transpire into? Other ways of using information from the SWOT is to identify the weaknesses and then think, well, how can we exploit them if we're looking at it from a target point of view? If we're looking at it from an internal point of view, how can we mitigate or remove those weaknesses? What can we do to overcome those weaknesses? And obviously protection against threats, or whether you can use those threats to either inhibit the operation or to get it to its desired state, depending on what side you're on, I guess is the point I'm making here. So there's a lot more to learn about SWOTs, and there's a lot more to think about, and the textbook covers some further detail on SWOTs. As I say, on the Interact site, there's an opportunity for you to look at a bit more resources on SWOT analysis. And of course, we'll cover these in further discussions. But for now, that should give you a bit of an idea and hopefully set you on the right task.